This week on Maker Monday, join us as we recognize Ryan Frauhiger, a remarkably talented chainsaw and chisel carving artist and owner of Forrest Carvings. Make sure you check out the imposing stone grizzly bear at the entrance of his studio, which was created by none other than Ryan himself, along with the help of his father when the studio was built.
Hello, my name is Ryan Frauhiger, and I'm with Forrest Carvings, and I very much enjoy being a maker in our community.
Ryan is fortunate to have a large studio space on his property to not only house his tools and creations, but also a space where he can let his creativity bring to life the potential waiting in the raw materials. Ryan says it best as he told us how he loves the word potential, because it is something that is in us all.
Yeah, the way that I got started in carving, it was something I really enjoyed doing, but could only do it as a hobby for several years. Of course, I had my day job and other responsibilities for an income, and then through an interesting series of events, my way of thinking changed a little bit on actually pursuing art as a career. One of the things holding me back the most was just maybe a fear of not making enough income to support myself. And then in 2013, I had a stroke, and that changed my thinking a lot, because the big question at that point was, what if I don't make as much as an artist as I would? I was working in a dental laboratory, and I was a piece worker. Piece worker gets paid for what they do. After going back to work 2 weeks after having a stroke, my production was way down, and therefore so was my income. And that fear of what if I don't make as much money was more of a reality. And realizing I don't make as much money as I used to. Answered the question, what if I don't? Well, I don't. So that's one less thing to hang on to. Had the opportunity to carve a tree, an eagle on top of a tree at a 4-H fair in Columbia City. That got a lot of attention from people, and they were asking me, can you come and carve my tree at my house? By the end of that week, I had 5 accepted bids for carvings that I could do, and I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. So I went back to work after the vacation, quit my job, gave them 2 weeks notice, and after that period ended, I went straight to work. And I was doing work after those 5 jobs were done, led to more jobs, and it's been going ever since. There's always been enough work to do.
Although Ryan would ideally carve a majority of his sculptures in his studio, when asked this question, he recounted a refreshing story of community involvement to make someone's vision for a sculpture come to life.
But one time I had someone show up and they wanted a tree carving, but they didn't have a tree. Well, what do you do then? Well, I went to the, down here in Bluffton at Forest Ridge Tree Service. He had lots of logs in his lot, and he gave me this log to carve, and I brought it here, set it up with the help of a farmer. It's a community project. A farmer had a forklift. He brought it over, stood up my log because I couldn't lift it, and I carved it outside. And then the customer came with a horse trailer and drug it into his horse trailer and stood it up in his yard down in Yorktown. So I guess you can't just say, well, we can't do that if you don't have a tree, because there's always a way to get it done.
In the next scene, we got the privilege of filming Ryan as he begins to work on a morel mushroom sculpture. He told us that nature is a huge inspiration for him, and he likes to do pieces like this. As it happens, he likes to prank close friends and family by sticking one of these finished mushrooms in their yard to see if his work can pass as the real thing. Ryan begins each piece by making sure that the raw materials he is working with are firmly secured down. and that he is wearing his protective gear. He then begins by making the first rough cuts with his chainsaw to form the ultimate shape of the piece. After the initial cuts have been made with the chainsaw, Ryan will use a series of tools, each creating more fine detail than the last, until he is left ultimately with one of his masterfully sculpted pieces. He explained to us that it's a matter of imagination, and using each tool repetitively over several hours until his vision comes to life. Most of his pieces are then stained or painted as the finishing touch. We asked Ryan what it meant to him to be a maker in our community, and to see his pieces being displayed throughout the county and surrounding area. He expressed not only how grateful he was to have that level of community support for what he had been up to, but also offered a day trip challenge. Ryan could simply tell us where all of his pieces reside and list what information he can, or is willing to provide a list of addresses to anyone interested in seeing his pieces in person. He recounted to us a touching moment where his own parents and their friends took that journey and were able to touch, see, and experience the art that their son had created and put into the world. If you are interested in obtaining a one-of-a-kind piece from Ryan, learning more about his work, or commissioning him, he can be contacted through email or by phone.